is IR 524, Cyprus issue, and we're going to cover week 5. Rise in the conflict in 1963-74. I would like to talk about the conflict and the intercommunal fighting that broke out in December 1963 that brought about the collapse of the Greco-Turkish state of Cyprus. Much intercommunal fighting occurred in Nicosia along the line separating the Greek and Turkish quarters of the city, known later as the Green Line, that I talked about in previous classes. Turkish Cypriots were not concentrated in one area, but they lived throughout the island, making their position insecure. In 1963, Vice President Küçük and Turkish Cypriot ministers and members of the House of Representatives left their positions in the government, so there is no more Turkish Cypriot participation in the Republic of Cyprus. So what happened in 1963 was, because of the tension, fights started first in villages, first in Nicosia, then in remote villages, and Turkish Cypriots started to live in the city, moved to the city, and they started to live in enclaves, which is groups in ghettos, in closed areas, so that they would be together and safe. They gave up their land and houses in the villages for security reasons, and they moved to big cities like Nicosia. They created a system of political, administrative, and judicial system of their own in the enclaves. Dr. Küçük was the leader of the Turkish Cypriot community until 1974. He was succeeded by Rauf Denktaş in 1973. So the official state was left only to Makarios and the other Greek Cypriots. Makarios was the president of the Republic of Cyprus. There were some Turkish Cypriot population in the Greek control areas, but this is also finished in 1974 with the division of Cyprus. You can see in the map the areas that Turkish Cypriots lived, and the TMT organization, Turkish Resistance Organization, has formed in 1958, and you can see in the map how they were moved on the island, all over the island. I would like to talk about something called Acheson Plan. This is a proposed plan by an American representative called Dean Acheson. He was special representative to President Johnson, American president. He proposed a plan which he believed would be a solution. The plan said a military base comprising almost the entire Karpas Peninsula of Cyprus would be given to Turkey on a 50-year lease. The rest of Cyprus would be politically united with Greece. Karpas Peninsula is the area at the very tip of the island. We also say nose of the island. So this was the plan of Dean Acheson. He proposed this plan. He said the island would be divided into a number of districts, 2 or 3 of which would have a Turkish Cypriot majority and would be under a Turkish Cypriot administration. Turkish Cypriots who wished to migrate to Turkey would receive compensation. In addition, it was suggested that there should be some minor adjustment of the Greco-Turkish border. The Greek government had proposed to cede the island of Kostelleri Zone, which is also known as Mace Island in the Aegean, close to Turkey, in exchange for enosis, meaning unification with Greece. The Cyprus government rejected this plan, as it did not include unconditional unification with Greece. The Diliria fighting in August 1964 interrupted this plan. So we can say this plan of Dean Acheson was not a successful plan, and both governments rejected the idea of his propositions. You can see the picture of Dean Acheson. So what happened next is that when we moved from 1964 to 1967, On 1st of April 1967, a coup d'etat in Greece brought to power a military administration. Coup d'etat means a military government, a military takeover in the government. So when this happened in Greece, just months later, in November 67, Cyprus witnessed most severe intercommunal fighting since 1964. So we can say this military takeover in Greece had its affected Cypriot politics as well. So what happened was between Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots there was a conflict, and Turkey responded. Responding to a major attack on Turkish Cypriot villages in the south of the island, which left 27 people dead, Turkey bombed Greek Cypriot forces. Following international intervention, Greece withdrew its forces. This time, the Turkish Cypriots announced their own temporary administration on 28th of December 1967. In May 1968, intercommunal talks began between the two sides under the auspices of the good offices of UN Secretary General. So we can say in 1967 there was some kind of fighting between Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots. Even Turkey was going to intervene, but then this stopped with the presence of UN, and we can say a major war has been prevented in 1967. So I would like to talk about the image of Turks in the Greek Cypriot press and image of Greek Cypriots in the Turkish Cypriot press. So I say image of Turks in Greek press. Turks were seen as minority. They were seen as greedy people. They were seen as a constitution given to them, super privileges, superpowers, and they started armed rebellion instead. When Greeks stood up for their democratic rights, Turks are seen as plain people with an evil leadership who will destroy them all. When we look at the image of Greeks in the Turkish press, we see that Greeks were seen as dishonest people, violent people who used tricks and force in the constitutional arrangements just to reach Enosis. Turks believe that they cannot live in safety among Greek Cypriots, so they should move together in unity. And that's the real idea of partition, division, that they had as their main argument. So we can see that both sides see each other as evil, as enemies, and we have rising tensions. So rising tensions of the early 1960s stimulated the formation of paramilitary groups, which are groups of civilians organized in military fashion. EOKA in the south, EOKA by Greek Cypriots, and TMT by Turkish Cypriots. This is happening on both sides. And as we know, we have a constitutional crisis that took place in 1963 that we talked about in previous classes. Both groups prepared for violence. The Greek Cypriots were better armed and more ideologically ambitious and appeared to welcome the crisis. I would like to talk about a plan here that I mentioned before. Agritas plan is a plan proposed by Greek Cypriots to limit the rights of Turkish Cypriots. The plan's course of action began with persuading the international community that concessions made to the Turkish Cypriots were too extensive, too much, and that this constitution had to be reformed, amended, changed, if the island to reach to a functional government. World opinion had to be convinced on constitutional amendments that gave Greek Cypriots political dominance. Another goal of the Agritas plan was abolition of the Treaty of Guarantee, which was signed between Turkey, Greece, Great Britain, and both sides in Cyprus in 1960, and Treaty of Alliance. They wanted to abolish this. If these aims were realized, Greek Cypriots would reach to Enosis, and Enosis would become possible. If Turkish Cypriots refused to accept these changes and attempted to block them by force, the plan predicts violent suppression of the Turkish Cypriots before foreign powers could intervene. And this is known as Akritas Plan in history. When we look at the Turkish Cypriot side, we see they also have an agenda, they also have a plan. We know this plan as Taksim, which is separation, division, partition. So the Turkish Cypriot Nationalist Plan is Turkish Cypriots believed Makarios and other Greek Cypriot leaders never honestly intended to cooperate with them under a bicommunal type of constitution. Once the Akritas Plan was exercised by Greek Cypriots, there would be nothing to stop them to achieve enosis. Therefore, Turkish Cypriots reached to 4 conclusions in their policies. First one is any agreement that may be reached with the Greeks must exclude enosis. A bicommunal state model should be used where Turks will have effective control as they believe they're not minorities. As the 1960 administration was a failure, a new settlement must be based on a geographically based federation, meaning that a Greek Cypriot unitary state is not acceptable. And because they cannot leave their security to the Greek Cypriots anymore, they want to make sure 1963 will not be repeated again. And the final one is Turkish Cypriot nationalism claims dignity of the Turkish community and the rights and values of Turkish Cypriots in Cyprus. So these are the 4 ideas of the Turkish Cypriot Nationalist Plan. And when we come to 1963, 1964, we see that the tension is at high. When we look at the Greek Cypriot nationalist positions, we see that between the years of 1963-74, majority of the Greek Cypriot community lost much of their passion for enosis. And the ones who still pursued enosis were divided into competing nationalist camps. We know this as 2 groups, Makariosites and Grivasites. Makarios is the president of Cyprus, and the people who support him and the republic is known as Makariosites. Grivas, on the other hand, was the leader of EOKA in the beginning. He wasn't effective after 1960, but because he wanted to pursue enosis and he was in conflict with Makarios, he formulated a new group known as EOKA B, and the people supporting him are known as Grivasites. So the main ideal remained enosis of Grivas as a long-term policy. Makarios accepted that there are certain difficulties standing in the way to enosis, which is involvement of Turkey. So Makarios accepted Republic of Turkey, and he seemed to be content enough to continue without enosis. And Grivas was a very big enosis supporter, so he wanted to pursue enosis. So at this time in history, we see Makarios and Grivas being against each other. It was the duty of Greeks to keep Cyprus as an independent and undivided Greek-dominated island. This was Makarios' nationalist stand, his nationalist policy. It should be noted here that majority of the Greek Cypriots were Makariosite nationalists, but some people opposed Makarios in favor of enosis. One reason to Makarios' popularity was economic prosperity seen in the Greek Cypriot side and high living standards that is seen after 1960. I want to talk about these economic developments on the island. In mid-1968, intercommunal talks under the UN auspices, under the UN control, began. Glavkos Klerides, who was the president of House of Representatives, which is the parliament, and Rauf Denktash, the leader of the Turkish Cypriots, they were involved of the first stages of these talks, which lasted until 1974. Although many points of agreement were arrived, no lasting agreements were reached between these talks between Klerides and Denktash. Turkish Cypriot proposals emphasized the importance of the local government of each ethnic community and the expense of the central government. while the Greek Cypriot negotiating teams stressed the dominance of the central authorities over local administration. In 1971, Grivas came to Cyprus once again and organized a new version of EOKA. This is known as EOKA B, the one that I already told you. EOKA B is a secret organization pursuing Enosis, unification with Greece. They believed Greeks should stop negotiating with the Turks on the basis of an independent state, and they should start struggle for Enosis. They believe Makarios must be removed from office. Makarios controls church, police forces, press and radio, and the TVs. These should be suppressed, the voice of their opposition. Makarios is useless in the internal and foreign policy making, so he should be stopped. Makarios is responsible for the weakening of people's nationalisms, especially their Hellenic traditions. So EOKA B is against Makarios. You should know that they support Grivas and they are against the policies of Makarios. They find him weak. So now I want to talk about the Greek prosperity, the economic situation of Republic of Cyprus. We have 2 5-year plans. These are economic plans that was proposed by Makarios. The first 5-year plan between the years of 1962-67 aimed to develop the economic potential of the island by organizing unemployment and to provide necessary infrastructure, diversification of the economy to remove the negative elements of pre-1960 economic instability. Makarios' government took financial and technical help from foreign governments and international organizations for improved agriculture, mining, manufacturing, construction industries, service industries, and especially tourism. The Turkish community were out of this plan because Turkish community left Republic of Cyprus in 1963. They moved to enclaves in small ghettos to live together. The first 5-year plan succeeded. Greek Cypriot government created the second 5-year plan between the years 67-71 to increase restructuring of the economy and to increase welfare benefiting. During the first decade of Republic of Cyprus, the gross national product per capita, which is the products and services produced in 1 year by labor and property supplied by the citizens of a country, it has increased from 222.4 pounds, Cyprus pounds in 1961 to 393.4 in 1971. This is an annual increase of 5.9%, which is a lot. Just before 1964, the GNP per capita approached 550 Cyprus pounds per annum per year. These figures show the growth of the Cypriot economy, better than other countries in the Third World. But it should be noted that the Greek and Turkish Cypriot community did not share this welfare. The standard of the Turkish Cypriots were much lower than of Greek Cypriots. During the course of the second 5-year plan, a series of measures was initiated to help spread the benefits of economic growth to different groups and in the different geographical regions. Something called subsidies were given. Subsidies are financial support. They were given to peasants. Social security benefits and pensions were increased. Education and public health was improved. So we should say the Greek industrial life was centered in the cities. There was urban-based Greek industrial trading. Professional classes grew in numbers. Prosperity grew in terms of nice, comfortable houses, cars, telephones, TV sets. There was direct contact with the Western Europe. Trade was very easy, either for business, educational contact with Europe was possible, or holiday, going to Europe for holiday purposes was possible. And this had affected the Greek Cypriot lifestyle. We should say that the Greek Cypriot lifestyle was much better than Turkish Cypriots. These improvements had important outcomes. Greece, especially after the 1967 military coup, was looked as a more underdeveloped country. As people had improvements in their lives, they expected and desired higher standards of living. A degree of sophistication was introduced to people's lives. There were more governmental departments, more trade unions that concentrated on workers' rights. Media gave importance to economy news, even publishing several special financial sections in newspapers. So people were more interested in economic security. We see a real economic prosperity at this time in history. So teachers were still supported Enosis, especially teachers from secondary education. Majority of Greek secondary education teachers were graduates of Greek universities from Greece. Greek Cypriot teachers followed the curricula based on Hellenistic values, nationalistic values. So when Grivas came back to Cyprus secretly in 1971, the ex-EOKA fighters welcomed him. They were called Grivasites, as I said. They were united to spread the pure Helleno-Christian heritage and duties. So they were very anti-Turkish Cypriot. When we're reaching to early 1970s, Cyprus becoming a partitioned country. Makarios being the president of Republic of Cyprus, but his authority did not extend into the Turkish enclaves. The House of Representatives sat as the legislature in the parliament, but only 135 Greek Cypriot seats were functioning as part of the central government. So these are years when we have Turkish separation and economic stagnation. After 1963, all Turkish Cypriots working for the government lost their employment, lost their jobs. So this is a period of high unemployment for Turkish Cypriots. Majority of the Turkish Cypriots were farmers, and 20% of the agricultural land was in Turkish ownership. After 1963, as many of the Turkish Cypriots moved to enclaves, moved from their own villages and cities and houses, they became a closed society. 30–40% of Turkish land was abandoned. From 1964 to 1974, Turkish government gave Turkish Cypriots an annual grant of 10 million Cyprus pounds. This is equal to 1,000 Cyprus pounds per head, which is a big number actually. Most of this figure was used for defense purposes and the immediate relief of the refugees. 1/3 of the Turkish Cypriot population lived on relief incomes under very bad conditions. So you should know that where Greek Cypriots are having prosperity and good economic standards, Turkish Cypriots have very low economic standards. The Greek Cypriot point of view was the Turkish Cypriots were rebellious and they're trying to form illegal settlements. They have no right to complain and they can come back and work for Republic of Cyprus. This was a Greek Cypriot official point of view. There was no settlement of Cyprus conflict by 1974. Greek Cypriots wanted the whole island to be Greek dominated. Turkish Cypriot wanted certain areas of Cyprus remain only Turkish. In other words, Greek Cypriot wanted Greek domination of the island and Turkish Cypriots wanted partition of the island. These were the result of two opposing nationalisms that is seen throughout the years in Cyprus. At the root of the apparent differences between sides was again the matter of local self-governance. These negotiations were accepted as a missed opportunity to settle the issue. Denktash insisted on local autonomy of the Turkish Cypriots. Makarios resisted to this idea. In his memoirs, Clarides mentions this event as the missed chance to settle the two communities' differences peacefully. So we are approaching to 1974 now. In 1968, the intercommunal negotiations started again, continued right up to the troubles of 1974. The two statesmen for their communities were Rauf Denktaş for the Turkish Cypriots and Glafkos Klerides for the Greek Cypriots. Both represented their own communities, the same people who continued to be off and on the main negotiators throughout the remainder of the century. The prime originator of Cypriot non-alignment was Makarios III, the president of Republic of Cyprus. Prior to independence, Makarios, by virtue of his post as Archbishop of Cyprus and head of Cypriot Orthodox Church, was the Greek Cypriot ethnarch. He was known as ethnarch, or de facto leader of the community. He was a highly influential figure, both in Cyprus and in the world. Well before independence as well, he participated in the 1955 Bandung Conference. After the independence of Cyprus, Makarios took part in 1961 founding meeting of the non-aligned movement in Belgrade. Reasons for this neutrality in the non-aligned movement may lie in the extreme pressures exerted on the infant republic by its larger neighbors, Turkey and Greece. Intercommunal rivalries and movements for union with Greece or partial union with Turkey may have persuaded Makarios to steer clear of close affiliation with either side. In any case, Cyprus became a high-profile member of non-aligned movement and retained its membership until its entry into EU in 2004. So non-aligned movement was a movement of neither a capitalist nor communist. So during the Cold War years, this was a movement of neutrality, and Makarios wanted to support this movement. Here you see the most important members of the non-aligned movement, co-founders, Nehru of India. You see all the presidents who took part in non-aligned movement, India, Ghana, Egypt, Indonesia, and Yugoslavia being part of this movement. We can say that the legitimacy of the 1960 partnership, the Republic, lay in the joint presence and effective participation of both sides in all organs of the state. Neither party had the right to rule the other, nor could one of the partners claim to be governed, to be the government of the other. So this 1960 Republic of Cyprus was accepted as a functional kind of a federation. Turkish Cypriots regarded the state of Cyprus was established on the federated principle of two separate political entities with equal rights, not on a majority-minority basis. The 13 points raised by Makarios that I mentioned in the last class were a clear signal of the Greek Cypriot intention to restrict the Turkish Cypriot political power. This was embodied in the basic articles of the constitution, with the long-term aim being that of the complete domination of Greek Cypriots. So this was the topic between the years 1963 and 74, and we covered week 5. In week 6, we are going to talk about what really happened in 1974. Thank you.